Sarah Kendzior. I'm a journalist, a scholar of authoritarian states, and the author of the book, The View from Flyover Country.
I'm Andrea Chalupa, a writer and the screenwriter-producer of the upcoming journalistic thriller, Mr. Jones.
And you are listening to Gaslit Nation, a podcast that examines corruption in the Trump administration and the rise of autocracy around the world.
We are speaking today with Malcolm Nance, a counter-terrorism and intelligence expert and the author of The Plot to Hack America, How Putin's Cyberspies and WikiLeaks Tried to Steal the 2016 election as the Kremlin's attack of our election was taking place, and The Plot to Destroy Democracy, How Putin and his spies are undermining America and dismantling the West. Nance is also the author of the upcoming book, The Plot to Betray America, How Team Trump Embraced Our Enemies, Compromised Our Security, and How We Can Fix It. With over 34 years of experience in intelligence activities, including providing both covert and clandestine anti- and counterterrorism support to national intelligence agencies and assets, Nance is here to explain where we are, how we got here, and where we're headed, and what we can do about our current state of events before it's too late. This is part 2 of our interview with him.
I mean, one of the things that's frustrating is that, you picked up on this in 2016. We did as well. And since then, we have the same racist demagogue con man now installed in an executive position. And in addition to that, you were naming some of the people who are most on the ball in terms of investigating the Russian mafia and the broader transnational crime syndicate that surrounds this. People like McCabe, Stroke, Lisa Page would be another. They have been purged. The courts have been packed. It looks like we're heading in the direction of show trials. I'm just curious, what's your take on where this is going and who is left to protect us now? Who can actually protect our sovereignty and our national security from a threat that is now well entrenched inside the country?
Well, I've said this many, many times before, and it's the only way it's going to be said. We are our last defense. We, the people, that's 60% of the public that did not vote for Donald Trump, that are consistently rating him as the worst president, and that, show him that he is a real hated entity. But you have to understand, he has under his belt people that have learned to game the American democracy. Every trick that has ever been carried out short of secession in American history, he has these experts on there, right? I was just looking at, they were just showing a clip of Trump and Clinton's debate on MSNBC a second ago. And Trump turns his back on Clinton with this dismissive look and sort of walks away from her like, why should I even bother with you? That is a very powerful way that people see women in this country. And that dismissive, who cares what you think, B, attitude played to that tribe. And that tribe is fighting. And that tribe has money and resources and experience. Look at Barr. Bill Barr was supposed to be this middle-of-the-road guy, institutionalist. He is literally the assassin of American democracy. He was sent to kill American judicial system. No joke. All right. I don't use those words lightly. He was sent to put the fix into that report. Remember when I was on Joy Reid, you were on with me that day, and I said, there is no way that Bill Barr would cover up the greatest scandal in American history by carrying out the greatest scandal in American history. He actually said, hey, I'm going to cover up all of this. This is my job. This man does not care about how he's seen in our history, which is objective history. He cares about how he is seen in the dominant tribe's history. Okay? These people think they will be dominating the history when the history books are written.
Certainly birtherism, which was a racist movement that Donald Trump fed and grew, that was also an active measure, wouldn't you say, in terms of intimidating and harassing and stoking his base while terrorizing his opponents? I mean, that was ongoing harassment of the first black president. So wouldn't you say birtherism and then followed by Pizzagate with that whole Michael Flynn and his son and Kremlin bots pushing that conspiracy theory that a family pizza parlor had links to some pedophile ring in the basement or something. So that was to harass Hillary Clinton. And both movements, or whatever you want to call them, both propaganda terrorist movements, they're very much operated like Kremlin active measures to harass, to divide, to leverage people's worst instincts to create like a threatening atmosphere.
I had to, because I wrote so much in this new book, I actually had to cut out a chapter called American Active Measures. And what it was a short study of how the right wing carries out the exact same active measures Russia does. And I think that they're just techniques. And they understand that these techniques work, and they don't care what the source of those techniques were. But I do believe that many of these people really, really live in an alternate reality. I mean, they view this reality of where they are the dominant tribe, and that birtherism is not a joke. After a while, they come to believe it.
There's certainly this toxic environment where people just refuse to face facts, refuse to learn history, and see that all of Donald Trump's ties to the Russian mafia and the Kremlin go back several decades. They remind me of anti-vaxxers, the anti-vaxxer movement. It's exactly what they remind me of.
Well, guess what? Everything I have ever said in the media is called Section 1 of the Mueller report. Everything I've written has been validated by the Mueller report. Every damn word. And I came out with it. The Plot to Hack America was written in September 2016. The second book on Trump Russia that came out was Luke Harding's 15 months later. The third book was Russian Roulette, which came out 23 months after I had written Plot to Hack America. So now there's like 500 books. Are we all fantasists? Are we all conspiracy theorists and liars? No, we can't all be crazy, right? There's only one person, one or two people not marching to the tune of the band, and that is Glenn Greenwald and the rest of these guys who have some position that they're invested in. I don't care about them one way or the other.
Yeah, it's almost like the horseshoe theory. They're so far left that they're far right. They're trigger happy from a place of, I don't know, it's just bizarre why you would root for the spread of global kleptocracy. And it's just history, if you study, as you do, of course, the last 100 years or so, there's always a Glenn Greenwald. I made a film on Glenn Greenwald, but it stars Walter Duranty, the Pulitzer Prize winner of the New York Times, who covered up Stalin's genocide famine in Ukraine. Greenwald would have been backing up Duranty at the time. He would have been he would have been whitewashing Stalin if he were around. And he's a sad embarrassment to The Intercept. And Intercept staffers have come out to even leak that to the press. So, our thoughts and prayers are with them. But I do want to say the geopolitics of this. So I want to take the macro view now. The Hollywood happy ending of America winning the Cold War, or so everyone thought, and everyone thought the Soviet Union was going to get this Western market capitalism shock to its system, and it was going to reform and everything would be all as well. But instead, the KGB, now the FSB, stayed strong, and essentially, to summarize very quickly, unites with this burgeoning Russian mafia. You have oligarchs emerging from all this, and now it's just gone global. It's gone global, and the mafia in the 21st century is borderless. So, with that said, could you talk a bit about the geopolitics of, let's say, starting from 9/11 and Bush's invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, and how you write in your book, The Plot to Hack America, that you saw this big turn away from monitoring Kremlin aggression, and all the resources were quickly pulled onto the Middle East. And I've heard that as well. The regret of that is sort of, why Bush's wars just sucked us in, that we couldn't fight other bad actors that were just as determined to destroy us as ISIS, like the Kremlin. And I remember back in I think it was late 2014, in an off-record chat with someone high up in Obama's Defense Department, very high up, who said to me, look, Russia is just not a priority. Our priorities are the Middle East. And that was a fact. It was the Iran deal. It was Syria. It was watching embarrassing John Kerry, thinking he could negotiate with Lavrov, his counterpart at the Kremlin, to strike some sort of deal to get Assad gone. And instead, the way the Kremlin does deals, the way Putin does deals, and the way Stalin did deals, is they want all of it. They push for all of it. There's zero compromise. And now Putin has Syria. He has his base on the Mediterranean in the form of his puppet Assad, and Assad gets to stay. And Assad's human rights abuses are escalating there in Syria now. And so could you talk a little bit about that macro view of sort of all these destabilizing forces that sort of helped lead us here, and sort of the compromises and blind spots the U.S. had in navigating all this all these years?
Technically, I could blame it on two people, everything that's happening to us. First is Osama bin Laden. The 9/11 attacks were done for, and I've written, most people know and think, oh, Malcolm's written 2 books. I've actually written 8 books. And my first 6 books were about terrorism, including a ideological study of the philosophy of Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda in a book called An End to Al-Qaeda. And it was really about his strategic viewpoint, his battle strategy for what he wanted to do with America and what he expected after the 9/11 attack. And bin Laden was a very interesting character. He was a student of the philosophy of Samuel Huntington. And Samuel Huntington came up with the philosophy of the clash of civilizations, in which Huntington, of course, wasn't saying that it would be religious civilizations. It would be rich and poor, north and south, these power poles around the world. Bin Laden extrapolated that into believing that there would be a clash of civilizations between Islam and Christianity. But to do it, you would need to topple all of the Muslim states to create a super state of Muslims that would, of course, go on to a war, a clash of civilizations with the West, with Christianity. Now, of course, I fought against these guys. I've studied these people. I've collected for almost a decade and a half against them. It's a crazy thought. But bin Laden truly believed this. So the thing was, when he carried out the 9/11 attacks, it was designed to get the United States to do exactly what it did, which was to attack all around the Middle East, but particularly South Asia. He wanted us to invade Afghanistan. He had in his mind that Islam had broken the Soviet Union and that they would economically break us too with an unwinnable war.
Hey, Gaslit Nation ladies and general fans of bras. Today we're talking about Third Love, a great company that makes bra shopping convenient. We at Gaslit Nation know it's a pain to take time out of the fight against fascism to go shopping for bras. Thanks to Third Love, you can get it done online fast and go on to battle autocracy in style. Using Third Love's online Fit Finder quiz, you can order your bras and try them on at home. Third Love uses data points generated by millions of women who've taken the Fit Finder quiz to design bras for a perfect fit and premium feel. You just answer a few simple questions to find your perfect fit in 60 seconds. Third Love offers a 100% fit guarantee in 78 sizes. Every customer has 60 days to wear it, wash it, and put it to the test. If you don't love it, you can return it, and Third Love will wash it and donate it to a woman in need. Third Love's team of expert fit stylists are available every day to help via text, chat, or phone. Returns and exchanges are free and easy. Third Love knows there's a perfect bra for everyone, so right now they're offering our listeners 15% off your first order. Go to thirdlove.com/gaslit now to find your perfect fitting bra and get 15% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/gaslit for 15% off today.
Bin Laden carried out the 9/11 attacks and then, of course, wanted to carry out attacks everywhere. And he wanted us to come there and commit atrocities, to invade countries, and to prove to the Muslim world that we were precisely what he said that we were, which was crusaders coming in to seize Muslim lands. And then, of course, they would form a caliphate and with the combined resources of the Muslim world, take on Western civilization. Didn't happen. Bin Laden got a bullet to his face. But George W. Bush is the other player. By invading Iraq, he gave bin Laden precisely what he wanted, which was a jihad in the heart of historic Islam by invading Iraq. He also unleashed Iran in its entirety. And I'd worked missions against both sides, Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. I mean, it's just utterly mind-boggling how those two people fulfilled this destiny. Now, Bush was a lot less sanguine about it than what we have now. Obama tempered it down, started putting the brush fires of the wars out. But Trump is a firm believer in the right-wing Christian theosophy that there must be a clash of civilizations between European Christendom and the United States and Islam. He believes precisely what bin Laden believes. Do you remember that speech he gave in Poland where he talked about a clash of cultures would eventually arise? That's precisely what he was talking about. When he used culture, he's talking about this. Russia views itself, and this was part of their seduction of the evangelicals in around 2010, as these people who would be partners in a war, a clash of civilizations that would bring the Eastern Orthodox states together with the American evangelicals and, European Protestants, and would create eventually, as I called it, an axis of autocrats who strategically would eventually bring Islam to heel. And I see all of these things popping up. These are those little dots that I keep telling you about. And I've actually spoken on C-SPAN about this, where I said they view this as a long-term goal. But you know what? I think many of them also view The Handmaid's Tale as a role model of a nation. And they think that they're within grasp of it. All they had to do was harness the hard tribalism of the right-wing constituency, and they would be able to take on the other 60%, bring them to heel, make this alignment between right-wing nations in Europe and Moscow, and then, even starting war with Iran would be a good start for their clash of civilizations. It's horrible, but you see all the moving parts. I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory. They tell us this is what they want to do. Brexit is a component of that. It's a response to the immigration from Syria, which if I were Putin, I would have encouraged too. Throw Europe off balance, make them all a bunch of racists. And now here we are.
And Putin, of course, under him, there was like this Russian pride parade, the nationalistic parade that launched, got quickly taken over by, the neo-Nazi types. And one black reporter from British media went over to Russia to study the far right in Russia, and he just couldn't take it. He couldn't take it. Like he went in kind of being like a Westerner abroad, kind of laughing at it, and then it got to him. It was just so disgusting and dark. And so, yeah, it's very much an ideology of hate that we're up against, and it's got this doomsday religious component that is absolutely frightening. And Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, has been on record attacking gay rights, and speaking. He's an evangelical who speaks very openly about the religious fervor.
His apocalyptic kind of aims.
Exactly. As the American Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. There have been interviews with him back in the day where he knew who Russia was. Like, he knew what we're up against with Putin. It's like the ideology trumps all that. And so people have to understand that the age of ideology is back. We have a president of the United States that, at least according to Ivana Trump, studied Hitler's speeches, kept Hitler's speeches by his bedside, has admired dictators like Orban and Kim Jong-un. My God, it's like the list is so long. And tell us, please, how do we then get out of this? How do we avoid the ideology of apocalypse from snuffing out the world?
What we're really engaged in right now is the defense of democracy, the defense of the constitutional republic we call the United States of America. And I think this next year, you're going to be hearing these calls get louder and louder because people are already becoming complacent. If Nancy Pelosi can't even go forward with her constitutional duties and is betting the entire balance of the history of the United States against an election, right, that he's going to lose, okay? That's insane. That is absolutely not what the founders built the system for. And also, it means that she says that whatever is happening right now is fine. All of these crimes, the obstruction of justice, do not rise to the level of impeachable offenses, that they are not high crimes and misdemeanor, which means that any Republican president from now on can get away with that. So here's my rallying call, being from Philadelphia, is that sunlight and shouting is the only way this is going to get done. We have to rally our people. We have to get people aware of what's going on. We need to make people aware of what disinformation is. You guys know on Twitter, I'm always one of the first people to start calling out active measures and campaigns that people are doing and speaking, frankly about these things. This is not a time in American history to pull punches. If the Boston Massacre had occurred in front of us, 1/3 of this nation would be like the Tories. They would be supporting the mass murder of a group of liberals if it occurred, and don't think that it might not occur. So we have to defend what this nation is truly built on, not the fantasy that Donald Trump has created and crafted, of which 1/3 of this country now believes. They believe that everything we say is a lie crafted by George Soros, and that progressives and moderate conservatives and moderate liberals are actually bloodthirsty revolutionaries who are, going to kill people in the streets. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Actually, Sarah, I was in St. Louis just before the election, and there were TV commercials out there showing the Antifa, in black mass destroying glass. And it was actually at a G7 thing. And Hillary Clinton is the most evil person to ever run for president. And I could not believe that this was an alternate reality, which was dominating local news channels.
Oh, yeah. And they brought it back for 2018 in McCaskill. Then she was in Antifa. I mean, it's ridiculous, but go on.
Yeah. Well, my point is that we need to shout louder. We need to expropriate, patriotism from these people. And I said, we need to fight in defense of the Constitution, right? We need to take back the American flag, and that we're defending American democracy. And we've got to start calling the opposition for what they are. You have to shame them. You follow a man that loves an ex-KGB officer. You guys are following an autocrat, a dictator, King George King Donald IV, whatever you want to call him. I like Benedict Donald myself. But you've got to start using terminology they use. These are called meta-narratives. Meta-narratives are Hillary Clinton evil, Donald Trump good. That's what the 2016 election came down to. We don't argue at that level. We all want to get into nuance and have long discussions. No, you are following a man that's a traitor, or you are betraying the Constitution. You are betraying the nation. Those people, when they call us traitors, Donald Trump uses that out there, they are thinking violence beyond their words. We aren't, but in their minds, they're being conditioned to believe that we're the zombies from The Walking Dead and that all they need is enough ammunition. I've got a bunch of people in where I live that are like this. These guys stockpile ammunition, and not because they think that they're going to have it out with us, but they say for Antifa. And it's like, do you even know what that is? To them, it's everyone on the left. Go read their writings. And that's why, I do a lot more stuff about right-wing extremism.
So we have a question from one of our Patreon supporters, actually, that we have to ask quickly first, where he asks, any list of the evils that led to 2016 that doesn't include a discussion of Brad Parscale and Project Alamo is only telling part of the story. So could you explain why Brad Parscale and Project Alamo are important to understanding how we got here and where we may be headed?
Brad Parscale, who was the head of the data team, and Project Alamo, which was a Republican Party data team, you have to understand, those guys were not the principal players. The principal players were Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, and the Mercer family. They funded and invested and broadened out Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica was a dirty tricks organization masquerading as a data analysis group. There's no way that you can convince me, and I wrote another part of a chapter of a book on this in both books, that the information that they saw on the internet, they were not part of the megaphone. Now, whether they were completely aware that this data was Russian, I don't think they care. You have to understand another thing. Steve Bannon is really sort of a poorly dressed Bond villain himself.
He's like a Bond movie corpse.
Well, he is, but he's like the worst Bond villain, right? He's the kind of Bond villain that Bond would not want to do anything other than shoot, because he's fat, he's slovenly, he has no taste, he has no class, but he has an ideology. And this is the man who weaponized gamers, right, by essentially selling cheats and little tricks and things like that, by using Chinese gamers to accrue all these online gaming points, and then would sell them to white American teenagers, and it made him hundreds of millions of dollars. And the forums like Discord and Reddit, where these people would share information, he weaponized them and turned them into what is now known as the alt-right. Steve Bannon created this from teenagers who were almost exclusively white, almost exclusively nerdy. I would even attribute incels to him too, right? Involuntary celibates. But he harnessed their ignorance and gave them a platform where people could discuss this stuff. But he made a lot of money off of that. And he was the one who saw that information and data could influence people at a level never seen before. And so he went to work together with Jared Kushner and the Mercers and essentially weaponized Cambridge Analytica. And then that data was turned over to Brad Parscale and Project Alamo. And all of them were using megaphoned propaganda in order to target very specific profiles of people so that those people would be brainwashed. I always say this on TV. The DNC was not what was really hacked in the 2016 election. It was the mindset of American voters who saw Donald Trump as acceptable.
Our discussion continues, and you can get access to that by signing up on our Patreon at the Truth Teller level or higher. Gaslit Nation is produced by Sarah Kenzier and Andrea Chalupa. If you like what we do, leave us a review on iTunes. It helps us reach more listeners. And check out our Patreon. It keeps us going.
Our editors are Carlin Daigle and Nicholas Torres. This episode was edited by Nicholas Torres.
Original music in Gaslit Nation was produced by David Whitehead, Martin Bissenberg, Nick Farr, Damien Arriaga, and Carlin Daigle.
Our logo design was donated to us by Hamish Smith of the New York-based firm Order. Thank you so much, Hamish.
Gaslit Nation would like to thank our supporters at the producer level on Patreon: Solomon Hikes, Alan Liu, David Porter, Joel Newman, Paige Harrington, Adam Levine, Alexandria Lane Detweiler, Glenda de Guzman, Henri Deschamps, Jared Lombardo, Jody DeWitt, John Ripley, Kate Cotton, Kelly Ranson, Kevin M. Garnett, Lorraine W. Todd, Tanya Chalupa, Terry Brady, Zachary Lemon, Ann Marshall, Michael Bayland, Brian Tahudin, Carolyn Friend, Catherine Anderson Carina, Kathy Kavanaugh, Diana Gallagher, D.L. Singfield, Doug Friedenberg, Eric Kaplan, Irina Guardia, Ethan Mann, George Hughes, Gordon Shumway, Gustav Halsby, James Tolley, Jason Rita, Jennifer Slavic, Jans Alstrup Rasmussen, John Dambro, John Keene, Kenshiro Nakagawa, Kevin Christie, Kim Mellon, Christy Vital, Larry Colwell, Lawrence Graham, Luke Stranad, Margaret Moe, Matt Perez, Matthew Copeland, Maureen Murphy, Michelle Dash, Mike Tripico, Nicole Spear, Rhonda White, Rich Craw, Sonia Bogdanovic, Ted Gary Mitchell, Thomas Burns, Victoria Olson, Zap Rousdower, and Hollis Ramsey. Thank you all for your support. We could not make this show without you. to deal with these abnormal times that we find ourselves in, we here at Gaslight Nation take a strong stance of saying no to savior syndrome. The only thing that's going to get us out of this is self-reliance and holding our leaders accountable. And the only power we have left that we can rely on is grassroots power. To illustrate our point, here's Share, providing a useful metaphor for these times. Rely on no one but your own hard work and dedication. That's the only way out of this. Awaken your inner Share.
You said a man is not a necessity, a man is a luxury.
Like dessert. Yeah. A man is absolutely not a necessity.
Did you mean that to sound mean and bitter?
Oh, not at all. I adore dessert. I love men. I think men are the coolest. But you don't really need them to live. My mom said to me, you know, sweetheart, one day you should settle down and marry a rich man. And I said, Mom, I am a rich man.
Welcome to the Gaslit Nation Action Guide, available on our website, gaslitnationpod.com. Democracy is a lifestyle. Trump is a symptom of the corruption, institutional failure, and indifference that we can no longer tolerate.
Okay, so number 1, get a guide. Stride Toward Freedom, the Montgomery Story by Martin Luther King Jr. is an essential guide to self-management, managing others, and building teams. This inspirational case study of resistance, written by a young MLK after successfully leading the Montgomery bus boycott, shows how smart organization took on the authoritarianism of the Jim Crow South. Never forget that MLK was considered a radical in his day, even though there's nothing radical about demanding human rights and dignity. Today, the same remains true. It's not radical or socialist to demand that corporations stop polluting for profits and to call for an end to tax breaks, like for sending jobs overseas, that worsen the income inequality crisis. To help communicate these urgent issues, another essential guide is the all-new Don't Think of an Elephant, Know Your Values, and Frame the Debate by George Lakoff.
Number 2 of the Gaslit Nation Action Guide, focus on state races. States decide key quality of life issues, and local candidates help drive votes up ballot for federal races. Every District and Future Now are 2 excellent groups working to build a progressive infrastructure and turn states blue from the bottom up. Get involved by donating what you can, or join or start your own group with their help in your state. We provide on our Action Guide interviews with every district and Future Now. For more background.
Number 3, join. Grassroots power is one of the strongest forms of power we have left in America, especially with Mitch McConnell and Trump packing the courts. Don't succumb to savior syndrome by expecting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or whomever else you admire to do all the work. Representatives are human and need our help. Fulfill the far-right's worst nightmare by creating generations of AOCs by helping build a more progressive union. Join a local group from any of these great national organizations for important action alerts like demonstrations or getting out the vote. Indivisible, Swing Left, Sister District, Move On, Flippable.
Number 4, fight global warming. Sunrise Movement is a grassroots organization demanding a Green New Deal. There are a lot of other groups working to adopt urgently needed green initiatives. C40 Cities connects cities around the world committed to taking climate action. 350.org helps activists rise to the challenge of the climate crisis. And there are more trusted organizations that need our support, linked to on our Action Guide.
Number 5, unionize. In the age of Trump, there should be no more fear of starting or joining a union. Just tell your boss that you saw how unions protected workers during the universally unpopular Trump shutdown. Fight for 15 and its local variants are working to ensure a fair wage and strengthen unions in the service sector. Don't know how to get started? Read Organizing to Win, new research on union strategies, and No Shortcuts, Organizing for Power in the New Gilded Age, both of which are linked to on the Gaslit Nation website.
Number 6, run for something. There are a lot of great groups out there that demystify the process of becoming a candidate and running a campaign. Run for Something is one of our favorites. There's even a book to help you get started. Run for Something, a real talk guide to fixing the system yourself by Amanda Littman. If you believe in facts and science and are a compassionate human being, you need to run for something and recruit others to as well. Even if it's a long shot, you can still create urgent conversations and treat your campaign like a platform for discussions you care about, helping bring together like-minded people to work for change even long past the election. Just look at what a refreshing discovery long-shot Mayor Pete has been and all the great work Andrew Gillum continues to do to register 1 million voters in Florida.
Number 7, protect the vote. Every District Action Fund just launched a, quote, report card identifying states with enough progressive support in local governments to push through important voting reforms like automatic registration and the abolishment of racist voter ID laws. Is your state on the list? You can click a link and find out. If so, Every District Action Fund empowers you to help your state reach the gold standard of voting. Concerned about vote hacking and Ivanka Trump branded voting machines? Yes, that is a thing. Secure Our Vote provides background information and other resources to take action. Other groups to check out are Spread the Vote, Let America Vote, and Project ID, which help people get the information they need to register, vote, and get an ID. And again, these are linked to on our site.
Number 8. Launch ballot initiatives and laws. Why not launch a ballot initiative? Kate Fahey turned her Facebook post into the movement Voters Not Politicians to end gerrymandering in Michigan. It passed overwhelmingly. We have a link on our action guide for you to read more of her story. Or you could build a grassroots coalition to get a law passed in your state. In our episode, How to Pass a Law, I interview my mother about how she, while pregnant with me, and a young mother already, without any political experience, mobilized a grassroots army to pass the child car seat law in California. Yes, it can be done.
Number 9, end terrorism in America. Moms Demand works to elect candidates and lobby for sensible legislation to stop the gun violence epidemic driven by the blood money gun lobby, the NRA. Southern Poverty Law Center exposes white supremacy, a leading terrorist movement in America. To help immigrant communities deliberately terrorized by Trump's cruel border policies, we have a list linked here of groups that you can support.
Number 10, make art. To say that art cannot make a difference stems from a tone-deaf attitude of privilege. Ukraine's Euromaidan revolution of 2013 to 2014 relied on art and artists of all kinds to sustain protesters living in Arctic cold temperatures and under the threat of government-sanctioned violence. North Korean dissident Yeonmi Park said that Orwell's Animal Farm helped her heal after escaping the cult-like dictatorship. And in our episode, The Blue Wave Continues, Kansas Rising, we share Davis Hammett's account of how painting a rainbow house created a ripple effect in Kansas, leading to major electoral victories. We need the artists and storytellers of all kinds more than ever.
So this is not a comprehensive list of suggestions on how you can create a more progressive America and stop entrenched corruption. There are many paths you can take, and we encourage you to think for yourself and to work together. There is no one solution. Whether you're in a blue state or a red state, these ideas apply to you. Do not take any of the freedoms you have left for granted. Never underestimate the power of hard work. Additionally, we have a reading list linked to from there because it's essential to read widely to understand how we got here and the best ways to navigate the challenges of the 21st century. So again, all of this is available on our site, gaslitnationpod.com.